So ladies, gentlemen, fellow Bat family out there, welcome to what is a dedicated DCU Batman discussion series video. And I say dedicated because normally with the DCU discussion series, we cover like a broad range of anything in the DCU, from Superman to Batman to God knows whatever else. But I realized, and I saw some of you say, hey, why don't you do separate discussion series videos for separate things going on? And I kind of already do a discussion series separately for the Batman 2 that is. So here's a DCU Batman one, and you guys have sent in a ton of things for me to talk about. Yes, this is a honeymoon content video, so just in case, like you may have seen on other honeymoon videos, if I'm missing out on something crazy right now, it's because I'm away. I love any opportunity to ramble about Batman. So without further ado, let's get into this one. DCU Batman's always an interesting one because obviously we all have our different preferences, and you know, let's not pretend as if he isn't a very popular character. So feel free to agree or disagree with me, but let's get into this. But one more thing, I know some of you don't like it when I do this, but seriously, I see a spike of at least 70 to 100 new subscribers every time I do it. All I want to point out to you guys is that during 2024, over half of you, as it says there, 52% of you who kept coming back to videos like this time and time again, weren't subscribed. Now, a lot of you say you thought you were subscribed, but you might not be. So here's your reminder to check that subscribe button. And maybe today is the day you actually hit subscribe on the channel, and I hope you enjoy your stay here. So right away from Brody Walker 216, I would love to see a multiple Batman movies after The Brave and the Bold. Doesn't have to be a trilogy, but maybe a World's Finest movie, and then another Batman-centric movie, along with any Justice League project. The DCEU gave Batman no justice at all. Now, I feel like people might feel, I guess, lots of different ways about that. Like, the DCEU did give justice to Batman, but I think Brody's just saying it in such a way where people loved Affleck and they would have loved to have seen more with him. But, you know, you started off with BVS, and sure, you got Justice League after that, and sure, we were supposed to get, well, the Batman movie was supposed to be Affleck originally. But either way, I think people would like to see, maybe this time round, less peppering around of Batman in the DCU and actually his own project. But I still wouldn't be surprised if some peppering, and what I mean by peppering is like sprinkling the character amongst different projects instead of getting his own actual project. But I'm not saying he isn't, because we should be getting, obviously, The Brave and the Bold. But the reason why I would say I wouldn't be surprised is you never know. I do want to say we don't know. This could even be unlikely, right? But he could appear in Clayface. Maybe after Superman, out of left field, we might get a World's Finest movie announced, even though The Brave and the Bold was originally perceived to be our first look at Batman in the DCU. But, you know, out of left field, a great example of that could be something like Clayface. Script was ready, they're now making it. You know, that wasn't a part of that original announcement. Gunn and Safran fully admit that. So you can always kind of get curveballs being like, okay, we're going to see DCU Batman, but in this project first. But I would like to think, compared to the DCEU, where some people loved Batman so much that it almost feels like an injustice that we didn't get to see more of him, in the DCU, hopefully, we will get that. But I know, as I'm saying this right now, sorry, like, I know you guys might not hear it, but I hear the screams of Wonder Woman fans all around being like, but what about me? And that would be so true. Like, we're talking about Batman not getting enough justice in the DCU, but Diana, anyone? Like, what's going on? So here we have Big Shaq 1029 saying, "Hi Boba, how can you make all of these videos so long and so interesting is incredible. Keep up the great work." You know, sometimes when I read something like that, I'm like, wait, is this being sarcastic? But thank you guys for enjoying my videos, I guess. I really do mean that. So thank you, Bat family. You guys are great. With this Batman being an older one with Damian, where do you think the rest of the Bat family are? Dick, Jason, Tim, Barbara, even maybe Kate. In what city, in what team or group could Jason actively be dead so they can do an Under the Red Hood storyline? And yeah, so this one is always a huge question for me. But for now, a lot is left up in the air because adaptations, I think we can all understand, have vastly adapted Robins differently. You know, look at even Ben Affleck's Batman. You had Dick Grayson die. And he appears, at least from what we can understand in the DCEU, to be the only, accomplice that Batman took on, if you will. And he seemed older rather than a little kid, so to speak. And it was Dick Grayson, not Jason Todd. Where you look at other things or stuff out there in live action, Nolan only basically kind of introduced the concept of a Robin in the final movie of the Dark Knight trilogy. And even then, again, not truly comic book accurate. So the reason why I say that, and I know I've heard a lot of you say over the years, Boba, you need to get your own shirt. The amount of times I've heard you say adaptations aren't copy and paste, and I am here to say it for the millionth and 78th time. Adaptations don't copy and paste. So who knows truly what loadout, or lineup rather, we're going to get with DCU Batman. Now, having said that, I would like to think that James Gunn will strive to be as comic book accurate as possible. And I say James Gunn, even if he isn't writing The Brave and the Bold or whatever like that, he still plays the puppet master in terms of he has the tapestry of how he would like the DCU to go. So what I'm trying to get across there is the writer will write the script, but James Gunn knows what he wants to adapt. And through hearing what James Gunn has said before, I do expect, this is one of the few expectations I really ever have, a certain level of comic book accuracy. When I say a certain level, quite a high level, all while still expecting, differences, innovations, if you will. So how could that apply to the Batfamily? I know what I'm about to say could piss people off because I every time I say it, I'm almost afraid now. But you might have to cut someone out like your boy, Tim Drake. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't exist. I'm just saying when you're trying to, because you have to, listen to everyone, right? And James Gunn has heard this point enough. I don't want Batman to be super old. We want him closer to David Corenswet's age and all of that good stuff. Okay, if you really want to do that, you are going to have to meddle with some of the canon, when you adapt it. There's no way around it. And that's, I'm okay with that, by the way. Again, adaptations, don't copy and paste. But so long as you don't have Batman riding a giraffe instead of a Batmobile, I think, we can all understand that would be a deviation. But when it comes to adapting the Batfamily, yeah, if you guys want Batman to be in close proximity to David Corenswet Superman, I still insist that he's still going to be 36 to 38, in universe. I don't think making him early 30s really works so well with the kind of Batfamily he would have already built up around him. Sure, people argue to me, hey, Boba, well, don't start him at 25 when he returns to Gotham, or 26 rather. Have him be like a 21-year-old Batman. But for me, I don't know what that is. I'm like, I mean, I get it, right? You have an 18, 19-year-old Nightwing sometimes, so why can't Bruce? But I don't know what it is, but I don't feel like Bruce Wayne Batman should be 21, 22 out in Gotham. Call me this is one of the things I don't like to budge too much on, but what I prefer to do is what even some comics have done, shave some time off the continuity. So yeah, Batman comes back to Gotham. He goes out there at 26, roundabouts his birthday earlier on in the year. This can really be blurred. We don't need to be that pedantic over the details. He meets Dick Grayson around 3 years into his career. So let's just say Bruce is going on 28, 29-ish years old. Somewhere around there, Dick Grayson starts being Robin. But, you don't have to have him be Robin from 8 years old to 18 years old. You can completely change that. Maybe make Dick Grayson 12, 13 years old when he starts to become Robin. Or he was 11 years old, did 6 months of training, and then when he was 12-ish, that's when he truly took up the Robin mantle. So all I'm trying to get at there is he's a little bit older from the 8-year-old comic book version, but I know post-Crisis and stuff like that, they aged him up a little bit more. Again, these are the details where I truly feel we don't need to be that fine-tooth combed with it. You can make it rough around the edges when doing this. And I'm not saying you have to forsake comic book canon, because trust me, I would love it to be as accurate as it can be while still trying to make the larger picture work. But getting on with this, don't train him for a bunch of years. Train him for, like, what, 4 years? 5 years? This would make Bruce Wayne around, what, 32, going on 33 years old when Dick Grayson goes off to, let's just say he wanders around for a year at 17, 18 years old, figures himself out, as per in the comic books. There's been a retcon, obviously. Like, initially, he kind of decided to give up Robin to kind of take his own path, but then, things kind of transformed to make the situation a bit more of an angsty situation between Batman and Robin, being like, well, screw you, Dick Grayson, and Dick Grayson also vice versa, being a bit like, well, I'm going to go off by myself, and even though they reconcile and all is good, whatever way you want to go with it. Around about that time, 32-ish, Dick Grayson, comic book accurate as well, 19-ish years old, 18 even, becoming Nightwing. And this would be really cool as well, having the Robins actually be comic book accurate age in the DCU. And I look forward to that because I fully expect this DCU to be fantastical. And I know some people can't imagine, like a young Robin or even like a teenager-looking Robin, like obviously Dick Grayson, let alone when we get to Damian Wayne. I truly do envision like Kick-Ass, like truly hit girl. This is something, sure, we're not going to get that in Pattinson's trilogy with regards to an actual 11-year-old kid, 8-year-old. No, of course we're not. Like, let's be real. That's not going to happen. You're not going to have an 8, 9-year-old, like the mayor's son, become Robin in that. No. But in the DCU, I would seriously say anything goes. Like, truly, I feel like Gunn's got to go there. So an 18-year-old becoming Nightwing, or even seeing a younger Robin, yeah, that stuff is believable to me. In those 4 or 5 years of Dick Grayson being Robin, you also have Barbara Gordon come in. Maybe a year into Dick Grayson being Robin, you also have Barbara. So technically, by the time Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing, you also have had not only a Dick Grayson Robin, you've also had a Batgirl. So at this point, Bruce is around 32-ish, and do excuse me if I'm like forgetting some detail I said, but let's just say he's roughly around 32-ish. Jason is already there before you know it. Now, again, you can like condense things down a little bit. Maybe he's only Robin for a year instead of like 2 years, and he dies after a year. Like, this is where Bruce is 33 going on 34 years old. Another thing I forgot to mention, since Barbara has been like Batgirl for like 4 or so plus years at this point, who knows? Like, you could also toss in the Killing Joke there, and by the time we pick up with Brave and the Bold, not only do you have Jason dead, you also have Barbara in Oracle mode, having already been Batgirl. By the way, I see you people who are like, but I would have loved to have seen Barbara as Batgirl. I get it, but I just keep taking into account, when you ask me this question, how can I see the Batfamily being built up at this point in the DCU, when Damian Wayne is coming along? This is a way of how I think they can comprehensively do the Batfamily characters with some expedited timelines, if you will, while still making it as comic accurate as possible. But one detail you guys need to understand is that, like, you're probably not going to see, with Damian Wayne coming in for his first appearance or like debut in the DCU in The Brave and the Bold, that there would be some variety of Batfamily history already built up. This is the difficult thing, so this is where things get a bit blurrier for me, so stay with me here when it comes to the chronology of the Batfamily. With Damian Wayne coming in, Jason technically, as far as, if I have this correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the Red Hood thing should have really already happened, because if I remember correctly, Red Hood comes back, or should I say Jason returns. It's like, hey, bitches, I'm alive, as Red Hood, when Tim is Robin. So let alone by the time Damian Wayne comes along, that whole thing with like the Under the Red Hood thing should have already technically happened when we finally see Brave and the Bold and Damian Wayne walks into the Batcave. It's like, hi, Dad. And Bruce is like, wait, I have a son kind of situation. Now, this is where I think the whole saying of mine, adaptations don't copy and paste, comes in so heavily. Because my own bias here would be such to match many of yours. And I've received a couple of questions here that I might be popping up on screen saying, will we see an Under the Red Hood story? I would like to still see that. So I think, hey, you can still do things a bit differently here in how I think you could pick up with Brave and the Bold with maybe, let's just say, if you want Tim as Robin, because, you know, going back to my chronology here, 32-ish, Bruce takes on Jason. There's a year of him being Robin. He could have already have been Bruce's partner as well, like in the original comics when Dick Grayson was still technically Robin, and he officially gives off the mantle to Jason, and then Jason officially picked, because there was a time when Jason was going around with Batman, and he was even wearing a Robin costume, but he wasn't Robin officially. So that's another way you could have technically have had Jason in the fold a little bit longer. But my point is, make him die after a year. Bruce is now 33. At this point in time, this is where you have a year or so where Bruce is, going on to 34 or so years old, and he's like, I'll never have a Robin again kind of thing. That whole shtick, and that's how Tim Drake does his thing. It's like, no, Batman needs a Robin, all of that good stuff. We're now getting to mid-30s Batman. This is why I always say 36 to 38 Batman casting in the DCU, makes sense to me in how you can, condense things down a little bit, but still be comic book accurate. But with the caveat, or the change rather, that instead of doing the Under the Red Hood, Jason Todd returns as Red Hood storyline before Damian comes along, maybe that could still be something that in the DCU that still needs to happen. So when Damian's here, you could have dialogue in the movie being like, hey, suit on display, what's that? What happened there? And then there's some exchange that gets said about how Jason died. And there's no recognition of him returning as Red Hood. That would be really cool. I think he should be presumed dead in the movie. That's the kind of change in canon from adaptation, when doing an adaptation rather, that I think fans would be, if anything, over the moon with. It doesn't really matter in my mind, truly. I don't think, maybe you guys can correct me here, with maybe repercussions onto Batman's psyche and stuff, that Jason still hasn't returned by this point. If anything, I think fans would like to see an Under the Red Hood storyline in the future. And, I've even seen some people suggest that in The Brave and the Bold, so at this point, Dick Grayson's Nightwing, Barbara's been and gone Batgirl in Oracle mode, you have Tim there, and then Damian comes along. Some people were saying, who's the villain going to be for The Brave and the Bold? And I'm not saying this should be the case, but they could do a new original story where they bring in Jason Todd as Red Hood, and there could be this cool dichotomy of, Damian Wayne learning to be less savage and more of a Robin, Batman teaching him all this, and seeing a former Robin return as Red Hood, and what happens there, what I don't know. I think maybe you should keep them separate, because there's a certain gold mine to be mined there with the Under the Red Hood story that could happen sometime after Brave and the Bold. I don't truly know if we're going to go there. It could. I wouldn't. Let me put it this way. I'm sad to say, as if I know this as a fact, right? But I just wouldn't be surprised if Under the Red Hood has already happened. I think everything I just said there gives you a broad idea of the way my brain sees the Batfamily being adapted in the DCU. And that's roughly Dick Grayson should already be Nightwing. Barbara came in during Dick Grayson's tenure as Robin. By the time Bruce is in early 30s, 32 going on 33, Jason's there. He dies after a year. Tim Drake comes in after Batman, is damaged from Jason's death. Takes a year or so to get over that. Tim becomes Robin by the time Bruce is 35, 36. And Tim Drake is currently the Robin of the Batfamily when Damian walks in the cave and is like, hey, father, please help me. Mom kind of dropped me off because grandfather is, he's trying to take over my body. And, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm your son. Yeah, if that wasn't clear enough through me calling you father. And then, we just go from there. I don't know. I love talking about this because as a huge Batman fan, my favorite DC character, how are they going to do it? Who knows? Despite me thinking this is the best way to go, roughly, Gunn could be like, hey, no, Boba, I'm going to do it this way. And I hope that I'm still happy with whatever he does, because I don't get why you would go a different way. This sounds so bullheaded of me to say, than roughly what I've said. But I challenge you guys, I don't challenge you, but if you truly have quite a vastly different approach to the way I've roughly given a chronology to the Batfamily while keeping Bruce 35 to 36, do let me know, because I would like to think that I've gone through a lot of different iterations in my brain, and I'm like, surely this is kind of the best way to go, right? Maybe you could chuck in, hey, maybe after Barbara became Oracle. You forgot to mention that Gunn loves Cassandra Cain, so Cassandra Cain could be a Batgirl in the Batcave as well. Like, yeah, sure, chuck that in if you want to, but I don't think I'm missing anything. But maybe you're going to do it completely differently, and you're dead-ass certain that, like, Gunn's going to do it the way that you guys are thinking. And I might have featured Commander Spider's 5432's comment earlier, because most of the original comment that they asked was pertaining to what I just discussed, but at the end there, both the Clayface movie and Dynamic Duo, if it ends up being canon, could establish the history of the first Batfamily members. The thing about Dynamic Duo, the reason why, as of right now, as Gunn said, it is separate, but it could be worked in if he figures out a way to work it into the DCU's backstory. Now, for me, with the rough synopsis of Dynamic Duo, again, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because I always preach adaptations don't copy and paste, but this would mean, I don't know if I like the idea of it, this would mean from the synopsis, as we've, let me try and read it out again here. Mintz will direct this movie, which follows the early days of Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, the Robins, but another synopsis, and this is not exactly confirmed, but it's apparently exploring the early friendship between Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, the Robins, as they navigate their dreams and differing visions for the future, leading to the emergence of a new dynamic duo amidst the challenges to their bond. To me, that sounds, I don't know if I would go as far as saying Elseworlds Robins, but it's not really the way I would adapt things in the DCU if you're wanting to try and stay as canonical as possible. Because Dick Grayson isn't like really Robin when Jason Todd is Robin, other than what I said earlier initially when, Dick Grayson went off with the Titans. You had Jason kind of fulfilling the role of Robin, even though he wasn't officially Robin. And when Dick Grayson returned to go his own way, he basically gave Jason the blessing to take on the Robin mantle. That's like, but like, it's not like they were working together and Batman went around with Jason and Dick Grayson, flying from rooftops together, like all three of them. So the way this makes it sound is like, hey, they're both in Robin mode, and we both have kind of differing opinions on how to dispense justice or whatever, differing visions for the future. And it's kind of like that sounds like a bit of a Elseworld, and it makes sense that it's something else to me. This is why one of the reasons why Dynamic Duo, on top of it being described as a very family-friendly theatrical movie that is stop-motion animation, puppetry, visual effects kind of thing, it just felt like hey, here's a cool little family-friendly, hey, two Robins in the Batman kind of world, in an Elseworlds adjacent thing, like, just like how Lego Batman's something different, adjacent, yeah, all of this stuff, right? Merry Little Batman, Teen Titans Go, they're all like different things. But you wouldn't say it's straight up attempting to do a mainstream canon adaptation. Dynamic Duo, hearing Gunn saying that he might try and fit it in, I don't know if I am too fond of the idea. And I'm sure, like, again, they come out as this Dynamic Duo. Like, I guess the arc of the film is for them to be, like, the balance of, justice between both Robins or something like that. They're both vigilantes under Batman. One's a bit more, like, idealistically like this. Jason's a bit like that. But together, they balance each other out, like the bloody twins in Star Wars The Acolyte. Did I just say that? But you get what I'm trying to say, right? Roughly. I don't know. Like, that's like, no. Like, don't make that the past of the DCU Batfamily. Why not just have it, like, traditional Dick Grayson, Nightwing, as I said earlier. Jason comes along. Yeah, sure, Dick Grayson and Jason know each other, most likely. Maybe they get on pretty well, but, like, Jason dies, all that good stuff, and all that good stuff. Oh, God. I'm going to have Red Hood come after me in a minute. But you get what I mean. That just makes more sense. Why not do that? You can still innovate. You don't have to copy and paste everything. As I've said, I'm open to that. But doing it the Dynamic Duo way, granted, I do want to say it's not exactly the firmest synopsis or description of the movie we have, but on the rough baseline concept, if what I'm like reading out there from those first reports is even roughly true, I wouldn't really dig the idea of the early days of Dick Grayson and Jason Todd working together with differing ideas. And sure, I'm being quite presumptuous here with what it could mean based on so little, but I don't know. Let me know what you think. Maybe I've got tunnel vision with this one and I'm not really seeing the potential in it. But how do you feel about these two youths becoming tested by their diverging ideas for what their future should be, when really Dick Grayson at that point should be Nightwing or nearing Nightwing, while Jason's like with Batman, and maybe there is something in it that I'm not seeing. This is why I do stay open to the whole adaptations, don't copy and paste thing. But for now, I don't know. And speaking of age earlier, Jeff M 1969 says, I don't want him to be too old. This guy, along with Clark, needs to be long-term cornerstones of this 10-year stretch. We don't want a 60-year-old Batman in 2030. So I don't know if everyone's got the memo, but don't forget, James Gunn did say that this Batman wouldn't be middle-aged. I think that was the latest, Batman age update. So middle-aged is like technically, it's getting older and older, but it is roughly like early 40s, mid-40s onwards. So to everyone who's saying like, oh yeah, they're going to get like the Kumail Nanjiani, Kyle Chandler, Joshua Brolin equivalent age of Batman, apparently not. Or even like the whole Lee Pace thing. And I think Lee Pace would be an impeccable Batman. I really do. But even actors like that would be technically going against Gunn's word of middle-aged, because technically, if you're like late 40s, you kind of are under the middle-aged banner now. So when it comes to all of these fan castings, and I still need to make my fabled fan casting video, again, Lee Pace being a great example. He's 45 now, but by the time the DCU Batman is cast, I mean, this is only assuming with Brave and the Bold, he'd probably be 47, but who knows? Again, we could have an out-of-left-field Clayface equivalent announcement, and it's like, world's finest, so we're getting a DCU Batman sooner than what we think. Or actually, Batman is appearing in Clayface, and not just as a shadow, actually maybe a bit of a look at the face, so they are casting Batman earlier on, which is less believable, but still, actors that I keep seeing pop up like that, technically, as per Google's definition, it is generally defined, middle-aged, as being between the ages of 40 and 60. So anyone like 45 plus that people are kind of suggesting, unless Gunn straight up does lie, which I know a lot of people say, oh, James Gunn's a liar, blah, 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 or whatever, they're probably not going to happen, which is why I see why people kind of go for like the Brandon Sklenar vibe, because he's similar to Corenswet in age. Sure, he's a little bit older, but like he fits the mold in lots of areas, but also within age. But then so many people want Alan Ritchson, and he's 42. Let's just say there isn't a world's finest announcement out of left field, and there isn't a Batman and Clayface, or at least a casting to whatever they could do. Then he could be Batman at 44. That's technically middle-aged. But let me put it this way. I still think Gunn could maybe get away with what we call as a white lie. I know people would be like, that's straight up a lie. But maybe he could still cast somebody who's 42. Because again, as I often say, just because, let's just say, Kyle Chandler is 59 in real life, but he's playing Hal Jordan in universe with bloody foundation and makeup on your face. Like he could still be argued to look like a 49, 48-year-old Hal, if you know what I mean. When in reality he's 59 in real life. So Alan Ritchson could play, a physical peak conditioned Batman in his mid to late 30s. Even though he's like 43, 44 in real life by that point, right? And technically, since middle-aged is 40 to 60 generally defined, maybe Gunn could be like, well, that's the general definition. I see middle-aged as more, 48 to 60 plus. 42, kind of get away with that. But let me know what your outlook on that would be, because funnily enough, I could imagine people wouldn't have a go at Gunn for that, because I feel like most Batman fan castings are technically breaking the middle-aged rule that he said they wouldn't be middle-aged, but only by like a handful of years. And again, the longer we live, technically middle-aged is getting a little bit older and older, depending on where you read the definition of middle-aged. And I get that's kind of coping. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on that. But I would, if you want to go strict no middle-aged, you technically do need to be looking at people in their 30s, like David Corenswet, but he's a bit too young, which is why, I'm not saying Brandon Sklenar Batman, but I'm just saying, hey, Brandon Sklenar, he's 34 years old. Even if in a couple of years Batman is being cast, like not anytime soon, he would still be 36, and more or less the perfect age to play a DCU Batman with all of the chronology I went over earlier. Even though, by the way, with everything I said earlier, by the time Damian comes in, he should really be in his 40s, like really. But I understand why people want a little bit of a younger Batman. So that's why I condensed down the chronology of the Robins and stuff like that, while still having them. So from Tabor Van Dussie Dorp 1035, I would love to see this be a fantastical Batman universe, but I also would love for it to be dark, gritty, and emotional. When the audience can really understand the tense dynamic between Bruce and Batman and the toll that has on Bruce's life, you get a really well-rounded story. I think that's what we need on the big screen. And I think that's what a lot of people want. Don't get me wrong, we've had the dark, gritty Batman, and Batman's always that, but what I mean is, look at, the Nolan trilogy, look at, even Pattinson's Elseworlds. I think people are ready for the fantastical Batman, kind of Grant Morrison, embracing everything, right? And what I mean by that is Grant Morrison's run, all while it can be really messed up, it does embrace a lot of the goofier vibes of a more flamboyant, fantastical universe. And that's what I think people just need to accept. It doesn't mean Batman isn't still Batman in that universe. It just means you are going to get every color of the spectrum of Batman, which is technically what Morrison did. He kind of made it such that every Batman story out there, even the wackiest ones, is canon, even if that means in the comic book he's adapting one of them as like a weird messed up dream. Do you know what I mean? It's still technically canon within the Morrison run in a weird roundabout way. That's the cool, creative idea that he had. And I think with Damian Wayne coming in, Batman and Son, you're going to have like almost these kick-ass messed up elements of seeing it. Like if Gunn goes there the way I think he will, having a hit girl Damian Wayne could be mad. Like mad, right? But also having Bruce tackle that and try and keep basically a leash on his kid and trying to like teach him what, I know that's the way you've been raised, but this could like touch on so many cool things in live action that I think this is a different and cool way of doing what we've seen, like from this, serious Batman, dark Batman, gritty Batman, emotional Batman, but finally a bit of a different Batman where you have all of that, but it's finally, I don't know, I guess I keep saying the same things. It's just portrayed in a innovative way. I keep like dancing around. Oh yeah, see this, see that. But how? Well, we haven't had a Batman other than like video games and comics and stuff on screen where it's actually like, hey, he actually has a Batfamily there. The Batcave is full of all of these trophies. Like all of the trophies like maybe that you're seeing on screen right now. Okay, sure, I'm probably getting my expectations up. Who knows how they're truly going to adapt it, but again, just roughly based on Damian Wayne coming in, we're going to see a Batman at this stage of his career, and you can see a different take on how to show those same themes with a Batman at this point in his life, tackling his son's morality with the way that he was raised, balancing his relationships with different Batfamily members. Is Bruce not developed enough himself? Of course he is, and he's always got something to learn. He's always needs to kind of learn how to be a better father to, Dick and other Robins out there and other, all of these things. I'm so looking forward to seeing this in that new vision because other than video games and stuff, we haven't truly had it. I think, if anything, in live action, Titans, the DC Universe show, that went to HBO Max. Sure, you might not agree with the whole Ian Glenn Batman or the way they did this, the way they did that, but that was actually a live-action Batman who we only really ever saw as Bruce Wayne, but with this network of other Robins and stuff that was forming. Now, maybe I'm having a brain fart right now, but like technically speaking, and sure, again, that wasn't like the perfect iteration, but one thing I really digged about it is that it was striving to do an iteration, an adaptation of that. And now in the DCU, oh man, there's so much that they can shine through doing a proper Batfamily. We're starting right in the middle of it. Not with all of these Robins are dead, or only one of them or two of them are technically only ever being adapted. There should be a rich history with also so much more yet to come for Bruce Wayne, Batman in the DCU, and the Batfamily overall. So from that guy, 1999, hey Boba, love the content and have been a fan since the early Gotham days. That's insane, man. We're talking like 7-8 years ago now. My question and theory is, I think that we might genuinely see the DCU Batman get a video game. With the news of Rocksteady reportedly developing a new Batman game, I genuinely believe it's the perfect opportunity for the first DCU game. Think of it, an insanely fleshed out open-world Gotham with an extensive rogues gallery would be the perfect way to catch us up and expand on the DCU Batman's lore, and would possibly gross an insane profit as well. Thanks for reading my comment, and I hope all is well. You know what, I said this when, we had the studio closures, the Wonder Woman game cancelled, the pitch for Constantine and Flash video game never, went into active development. I said it really wouldn't surprise me. The thing about the DCU video game situation is there's possibly all kinds of things, maybe not, but maybe in development. I say maybe not because Warner Brothers games seem to be playing things very safe. Gunn was like, yeah, like we should be doing DCU video games. It's a DCU canon spread across video games, animation, and live action, right? So knowing that Rocksteady is doing a Batman game rather, and it's years away, which makes sense. A game shouldn't be rushed out in a couple of years. These days, a decent game takes 5-6 years to make. But also, yes, with it being years away, it makes sense that we're well into the DCU by that point. Why not make it a DCU Batman video game? Like, if we've had the Arkham games already, you could technically follow on from the Arkham games in a way, but if you've already got a DCU Batman with a Batfamily built up around him, and you've said that this canon of the DCU's world is going into the video game territory, why not make it some kind of adventure for the DCU Batman? I completely agree with what that guy said. If I were to bet on this, I would say that it's kind of maybe above 50% like chance of it being a DC Batman game. The only thing with that is you're going to have to heavily vet it. Like, Gunn is going to have to be heavily involved. He would have to give them insane bullet points, say, like, this is what the story should be. These are the characters that need to be in it, and this is where Batman is at after the Brave and the Bold, and the world and stuff around it. I don't know. Like, maybe you can explore more of Nightwing in that compared to seeing him again in Teen Titans. I really don't know. This is heavy and insane conjecture at this point. It might not be a DC Batman video game, but I do agree that it would be, hey, if you're going back to Batman again, you may as well do DCU Batman. Up next from Nick3607, I think maybe Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, whatever bloody way you want to pronounce it, will be the villain of this movie, since we're also introducing Damian and probably Talia in this movie. Speaking of Ra's, we also have Jack Slade UAM saying, I'm just gonna say, I'm hoping we get an honest-to-goodness 500-year-old Ra's al Ghul. Since we're getting Damian, I don't see how we wouldn't get some version of Ra's. Liam Neeson is a fantastic actor, but I'm hoping we get a full-on fantastical portrayal. I do agree. Now, as for like main villain, that's, a thing we need to figure out, because I get asked a lot, like, okay, who's the villain going to be in Brave and the Bold? And I think I would really be happy with Ra's al Ghul. I'm not saying that is going to be, or who I think will be, but let's just say that was announced. It would make tons of sense, just with Damian's backstory. I could truly see them, like, Talia fleeing with Damian. Bruce doesn't really know he has a kid, gets dropped off on his doorstep, and that's because Ra's al Ghul is trying to use Damian's body to, like, live on. At this point, Ra's could be in that kind of Voldemort little kind of, like, tucked up mode, like, and you might have White Ghost. Like, so you could have Ra's as this looming threat with the League of Assassins, but you could have White Ghost really trying to bring back Ra's al Ghul, whose body is, like, decaying, and that's why he wants, his grandson to, he wants to take over his grandson's body. But obviously Talia's like, well, no, I don't want that, so let's go to Batman. But Batman's like, wait, what? A, I've got a kid, but B, I'm caught up in all of this. That could be a good introduction. This could mean that League of Assassins members pursue Batman and go into Gotham. It also means, and before anyone says it, but it'll be retreading. No, it won't. This isn't Liam, as pointed out in that comment, this isn't Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul. The DCU Ra's al Ghul would be so cool. Like, we're talking full-on Lazarus Pit, full-on fantastical universe. And you could even pick up the movie that way. I can see a sequence, the first 8 to 10 minutes of the movie, being in Nanda Parbat with Damian having a normal everyday life of Damian with Talia kind of around the League of Assassins area, and then all of a sudden he's being kind of coaxed into by the White Ghost to basically be taken over by Ra's. All of a sudden they start fleeing, Talia gets him out of there, and it's like this high action, catapult into the movie, into the Batcave. And then you can imagine, the sequence into the Batcave, the Bat flies by, and Damian is like wandering around in there. And you could also like have Batman just kind of like drop in, be like, "Who are you?" or something. I don't know. And it's like, "Hey, father." And it's just like, boom, credits, Batman, the brave and the bold. I'm not saying that's a great idea. I'm just saying that's a way to catapult the beginning of that movie. And then you hear in the background, or it could just, before the credits, if they do a title screen, you might hear "Hello, my love" or something like that. And Batman's like, "Oh, for fuck's sake," something like that. Like, what's going on now? So then Batman is left with Damian because Talia has to deal with the split faction of the League of Assassins, because you could have Sensei or White Ghost have some loyalists to him, but then Talia has her own loyalists. You also have Ra's basically being like, "Well, I still want to come back." I know I'm kind of going on all over the place right now, but that just seems like a believable one, because it truly gives a reason for Damian to go to the Batcave in the first place, because he kind of needs to. Sure, you could go with an option where Damian just wants to learn more about his father. He's kind of at that age where he just leaves Nanda Parbat, even without Talia knowing. But I guess he could be curious, but the whole, Ra's al Ghul being Ra's al Ghul, used the Lazarus Pit too many times. Hey, I've secretly, had Damian in mind this whole time to take over his body kind of thing, is a lot more believable. And also this way, it is kind of a main villain in a sense, but while you have Batman teaching his son, and it offers this whole other through line in the movie of, Batman learning to be a dad, also Batman being Batman, Damian being Damian, them both clashing that way, but them also both grounding each other. That's what makes the Batman and Son story a really interesting Bruce Wayne and Batman story, but also a transformative arc for Damian Wayne as well, where there's this kind of new equilibrium found for both characters by the ending events of the story. But throughout that, you could also have other villains peppered in there throughout Gotham while, like, Bruce is teaching Damian to kind of calm down a little bit. But that might get a bit too messy if you're already trying to escape the League of Assassins who are coming after them or something like that. I don't really know where I'm going with this or how they'll adapt those comic book storylines. But Ra's al Ghul, I can just read that already a lot of people would be like, "Oh, really, Ra's al Ghul?" But I think that would rub me the wrong way, hearing a bunch of people say that, because they're acting like Liam Neeson the last time we properly saw Ra's al Ghul in the movie sense is anything remotely similar to a Lazarus Pit Ra's al Ghul trying to take over his grandson's body to live on even more. Like, come on, guys, that's not remotely the same thing. And what I like, even though, Gotham very much so took on its own ideas, the Ra's al Ghul we had in that was super cool in terms of what I can, and maybe you're seeing clips on screen, you could kind of see that threat, right? And also the history to Ra's and Bruce that could be reawakened there. I don't know. I feel like a broad plot like that, it's more of like a looming threat. The main through line of the movie is the relationship between Batman and Son. You might encounter League stuff here and there. Maybe the physical threat could be someone like White Ghost actually finding where Damian went to and going up against Batman and Damian Wayne because he wants to drag Damian Wayne back to Ra's al Ghul. Or maybe Ra's al Ghul has taken over another body to bring Damian back to complete the ritual so he can actually take over his body. So there's maybe a culmination in the movie like that. But mainly, as I keep saying, this through line of the movie is the relationship between Batman and Son, where you get action every now and again while they're evading or trying to hide away from the League learning their location. And also you can revisit Talia and Bruce history there. You can bring Nightwing into the movie. You can bring in Oracle into the movie because she will have, like, intel on how the League are tracking them or something like that at some part in the city. All of this stuff, like, you can bring in all of these organic parts of the Batfamily as it currently is in present-day DCU into the film in a way that I think really works, despite me kind of being all over the place when roughly explaining this. If you have any other alternate ways of doing it, let me know. But I think, Ra's will have to be involved in some way, as you guys are pointing out. And I just think depicting Ra's as maybe somebody who's been around, obviously, for a very long time, but maybe really wanting to take over his grandson's body, which also, I think, adds a very believable reason as to why Damian would want to leave the League. So, like, he can't really change who he is straight away. Like, he's still a murderous ninja assassin. But I don't want to be in a place with my grandfather, like, so I have to be with my father in Gotham. But I'm still who I am, this kind of entitled, spoiled ninja brat, right? Who will go through this transformation during the film, thanks to Batman, but Batman will obviously learn a few lessons as well. I really do feel like Ra's propels that, but also Ra's and those loyal to him won't want him dying, so there'll still be a threat in the movie. To me, at least for now, that's the most obvious option to go with. I don't know, I'm gonna shut up now, but I really like that idea. Fantastical universe, guys. Don't forget, fantastical Ra's al Ghul, fantastical ninjas, and lots of lessons learned for both characters along the way. And best of all, loads of exposition. Batfamily sprinkled in there. I could keep talking, clearly. That's how much I freaking love talking about the potential plot of this film, because I could just see it in my head. I could see it. Liam Soprano 6942 says, though, that I want Red Claw, Rupert Thorne, Ra's, and Mr. Freeze. Well, sorry to burst your bubble, my friend, but do not forget that in the DCU, around 15 years ago, Rupert Thorne was killed by Dr. Phosphorus. Don't forget that in Creature Commandos, Rupert Thorne was the reason why Dr. Phosphorus was created. And let's just say Dr. Phosphorus went right up to his home, marched up there, and killed him and his family. So, yeah. Since Brave and the Bold is set in present day, or like DC Batman in general, in present day, yeah, Rupert Thorne's not going to be there. But hey, Mr. Freeze, he's out there somewhere, especially probably present day, maybe. Red Claw animated series vibes, that'd be pretty cool. 3 Rick Lowell says, hey Boba, do you think that the DCU Batman will have the white eyes, much like the animated series, comics, and others? It worked on Deadpool, so I'm wondering if it will for Batman as well. I've always had the attitude where, look, we've got a Elseworlds Batman where I really don't agree with white eyes. I agree with how you can tell there's emotion under the eyes. To the people who say, but Boba, you could still do white eyes because you still have facial expressions for acting. Look, I get it. I get what you're saying. I'm not stupid. Yes, my micro muscles in my face portray emotion if I had white eyes, but there is so much you can see in the eyes under the Batman cowl. But for the DCU, I'm like, you know what? If you want to go there, go for it. I'm all game. I've got that Batman over there. Do what you want with the DCU Batman. However, what you need to understand at the same time is Deadpool's white eyes are very expressive, and I don't think they would be that expressive the way they would do it for Batman on his Batman cowl. It's not going to be necessarily like animation there. Unless you really, really gave the Batman cowl, the DC Batman in live action, like maneuverable white eyes that truly do gasp in the same way that you may be seeing on screen with Deadpool. I don't know, though. Let me just say I'm game for it. I'm down for it, but I don't know if they're going to do it. It'd be really cool. As well as, like, I got asked here about the Batmobile, like, how would I want the Batmobile to be done? Asked by Gene DLLJD here. And for me, honestly, I absolutely Telltale Batman kind of Batmobile. It's kind of like a mix between a car and, like, a supercar. So you've got Panson's Batmobile, which is straight up, like, muscle car, which is modified by him. Yeah, I don't want it, like, Tumbler or necessarily as tanky as, like, Arkham game Batmobile or Ben Affleck's Batmobile, but the Batmobile from the Telltale series is truly like a perfect like middle ground where, hey, car, but also this looks like a super kind of Batmobile kind of car. And I love that. So honestly, I really want them to take quite a bit of influences for DC Batman from some of the video games. Telltale Batman, Arkham Batman. That would be amazing. But that, unfortunately, guys, is everything I'm going to get into in today's DCU Batman discussion series video. What you can actually do is let me know if you would like to see individual discussion series videos like this more in the future. So maybe another separate DC Batman one, maybe another separate, because I definitely will be doing a separate discussion series on Superman once the official trailer drops after CinemaCon. So it won't be like a broad DCU one. it's just going to be about Superman. So I might keep doing this for other characters as well. Let me know any suggestions, but I think we, you know, rambled enough for today, but would absolutely love to know any and all thoughts with regards to what we covered. But if you like this video, would really appreciate a like. Consider subscribing for more nerd out videos like this. Until I return from honeymoon, guys, I hope you enjoy the content that I have planned, and I guess I will be seeing you in the next one. So thank you so much for watching, Bat Family. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.